Welcome back, and we have our first discussant this morning who's going to be looking at all the topics for Open Day. Of course, you know the public is the second discussant. When we open the phone lines, you can let us know into what you think about all these three topics. So let's run through the three topics for discussion this morning before we introduce our guest. 2018 budget signed into law by President Muhammadu Buhari. Finally, 6 months after it was laid by the National Assembly, on the floor of the National Assembly by President Buhari, it's been signed into law. Safety on our roads. Planks fell of the Ojuelegba Bridge led to the death of 3 people and wounding several others. The blame game has begun. Who's responsible? Who should have done what? Was this avoidable or not avoidable? APC National Convention. People running to Abuja now. Delegates for all important convention to choose executives for the All Progressives Congress National Working Committee. You know all the works. Already a national chairman looks unopposed. Adams Shomale, former governor of Edo State. Looks like the one that will be the chairman of the party after all his opponents pulled out. So that's what we're talking about this morning. We're going to have a discussion with Kaido Titoju, who is a politician, he's a logistic and transport consultant, also public affairs analyst. Great to have you because you sort of wear 3 caps and can graciously deal with all 3 subjects. Great to have you join us this fine morning, sir.
Thank you, Andy Neil. Elected chairman of Lekki Resident Association.
Yes, very true. Your advocacy work.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I can't but forget your advocacy work, especially when it comes with those sort of issues. Thank you very much for joining. And let's begin from where I think is the hottest, between the National Convention of the APC and the 2018 budget. 2018 budget, I think, is really important because it affects every single person. The president, while signing the budget into law, accused the National Assembly of inserting projects, cutting his own projects, and saying because of that, he may not be able to successfully implement the budget. The PDP says it's just balderdash. And I say it's an excuse for saying that he will not be able to do what he's done because he's running a badly run economy. What's your perspective on this? The role of the National Assembly saying, for example, we are not a rubber stamp of the executive, and the executive saying your job is to legislate and not to introduce projects into the budget.
Well, I think the executive is right because the executive prepares the budget, and that's why we have Minister of Budget and Planning. So after the preparation, you must go to the National Assembly, for passage, But over the years, the National Assembly have been prevaricating, over timely, passage of the budget. For instance, this is the 6th month of the year because our financial year is January to December. This 6th month of the year and the budget is just been passed. So, and when it's passed again, you find that it's padded already. Sorry for using the word, padded already. When budgets are prepared, there are so many subheads, from MDAs, ministry, department, and agencies that come into bear. And things are painstakingly put together and costed with estimate before it's passed, or before it's sent to the National Assembly. Now, for National Assembly to have slashed these major projects and programs and replace with their own preconceived project, it's wrong. Very wrong. And that's why I think the president really descended on them, when he was making, the
But I'm a bit surprised here because let me tell you why.
Yeah.
When the National Assembly had the joint sitting and they said this is our joint budget has been passed by the House of Reps, passed by the Senate, and they announced to us that the budget has been moved up from 8.6 trillion to 9.1 trillion. Explain to us this 500 billion naira that had been introduced into the budget, into a number of areas, including National Assembly that increased their budget from 125 billion to 139 billion naira. They said that that's the Chairman House Committee of Appropriation for both chambers, the Senate and the House of Reps, that they agreed with the executive that we are going to increase the budget because of the price of crude oil is no longer $51 a barrel or $35 a barrel, which they had planned. And they sat down and agreed. So to hear the president say this, like he wasn't aware that this had happened, that the executive and National Assembly agreed on this, does it come to you as a shock?
No, they lied. The National Assembly lied. This budget has been submitted before end of December 2017. And all the parameters had been taken into consideration before. Budget is an estimate. It's not exact, all right? And whether the price of oil now increase in due course, that's why there is always supplementary, budget, or, do you get my point? What was submitted could be adjusted here and there, but not for you to now put different budgets or different items that are more or less minor segmented programs and that are really not capital informed.
But the argument of the lawmakers is that they are supposed, or they are empowered by law to properly prepare the appropriation bill. So if the argument is that they are supposed to properly prepare the appropriation bill, then who is supposed to initiate and make this appropriation bill?
The executive. The executive initiate and...
But the National Assembly says by law they are empowered to do so.
They are empowered to check and confirm what is sent to them. They are not to alter. They are not to alter. If at all they are altering, it should be downward, not bringing almost 20% of the total, into the budget. I mean, it makes planning, useless. Because it's like you are planning without data, okay? Whereas the executive plans with data or extrapolation of figures, based on economic reality, perceived economic realities.
We're touching bases now, and we come back and then we're looking into many of these issues. Let's look at the APC convention. This is a party that came into the mainstream politics, with all of the argument about whether the name is APC or ACB, and they argued for such a long while. People thought they were such an unserious bunch of politicians, but they stunned everyone and won the elections in 2015, the general elections, and not just at the presidential level, but in several other states, announcing the arrival into the mainstream politics. But after then, they've been the butt of jokes, and a number of people have argued about how serious the party is in terms of charting the way to say this is the new brand of democracy we're running as a country. It's taking them such a long while to hold a convention. Eventually, they're going to have one tomorrow. In your perspective, look at all the drama that's happened, the NPDP, the Governor's Caucus by Rochester Okorocha, the President's preferred candidates, stories about consensus, at least late night meetings and all of that. Are you satisfied that we have an ideal sort of party to trailblaze in terms of how the political process should run?
Well, no party is ideal. More so that APC is like a melting pot. That is agglomeration of various fragmented parties, at least 5 parties coming together. And every fragment still sees a sort of principle of empire building within. So
you're saying they haven't fused together yet?
No. So I happen to be a member of APC, and because I was in PDP before joining, okay? It was like once you are there, any major things, you are not considered. You are not considered. Be it board appointment, even ministerial, whatever. Whereas the real core ACN, and the AMPP, the one
CPC.
No, the one where
NPP.
the president was.
CPC, what
Yeah.
is CPC then?
Yeah, they tend to have the lion's share, if not all, the things. And When you come together, you put your resources together, you come and form a party, you campaign together, you want together. When it's time for dividend of democracy, you must, share in a proportionate way. So, people who seems left out are not happy. And again, there is a sort of problem of which party is bigger, or which, partner is bigger. Is it ACN or the whatever? And so who controls, the party organ, like the chairmanship of the party and other this thing. So all those things are there. So within the party itself, there is problem. And once there is problem, it's like things fall apart, center may not hold. Yeah, so that's the problem. But the president has been able to manage things, despite all this. Because, first of all, he was voted based on his integrity and straightforwardness, which I think still, it still maintains. Though there were problems of, appointments, most especially in the area of security appointments, that the thing seems to be negatively skewed against, the Christian and the Southerners. So all these are things that he has been able to, and because of the integrity, has been able to manage.
But with the internal fracas going on within the party, do you think it's going to count against the party come 2019 elections? Because a lot of people are aggrieved with the way things are going in the party. So do you think with what will happen tomorrow, since the convention is still taking place tomorrow, do you think it could count against APC in the 2019 elections?
I don't think so, because there is always allegiance to the party. And it's like a cult once you're in the party. In 2003, I left AD for NCP because of the mago by AD then, which led people like Bola Tinubu to form his own section of AD. So I left for NCP, that's National Conscience Party. That's the party by Gani Fawehinmi and Femi Falana. Right. In fact, Femi Falana and I teamed together. He was gunning for governorship, I was gunning for Senate in Ekiti North. And despite the glamour and all sorts of that went into our campaign, in fact, at a point we were rated #1. The party was rated #1, and at the end of the day, we even came second in the state election because we had 2 House of Assembly. AD ended up with 2 House of Assembly, while PDP got 20 out of 24. No, 22 out of 26. So what I'm saying is, despite the fact that because of my personality and my campaign, whatever, I was supposed to win the election, not minding what party. But there and behold, the AD under which I've campaigned for almost 3 years before the time, still won. Why? Because even all the people that I thought were my followers, when it was the day of election, they didn't vote for me. They voted for that party. So people are always, committed and loyal to parties when it's time for election. So, and the party members are the canvassers for votes during election. So, not minding this you are seeing, it's happening in other parties too, like PDP and whatever. When the chips are down, every member of a party has no other place to go. And there is always unity.
I'll kindly put you on the pause, Mr. Otitoju here, and we'll take a commercial break. When we come back, discussions will continue with Kayode Otitoju, former Commissioner for Information in Ekiti State. Please stay with us.